Okay, these are your notes for solving and graphing one-step inequalities using addition and subtraction. This is Chapter 8, Stop 2, Pit Stop A. Alright, so solving one-step inequalities using addition and subtraction is almost identical to solving one-step equations, which you did in Stop 1. The only thing that's going to be different is figuring out the inequality symbol and graphing. That's the only thing we're adding to it. So we're going to follow basically the same steps. So step 1 we know is to cut it in half. Step 2, isolate the variable or get the variable by itself. Step 3, in order to isolate the variable, we're going to use the inverse operations, okay, or opposite operation to solve. And then step 4 is we were used to bringing an equal sign down when we're doing equations, but since we're doing inequalities, when we're adding or subtracting, we're just going to bring the inequality symbol down to our answer. And this will change a little bit for multiplication and division, all right? But for addition and subtraction, we're just going to bring that inequality symbol straight on down. And remember, what we do to one side, you must do to the other. Okay, whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other, because we got to keep those balanced. So let's come down here to our examples. We're going to solve the inequality and then we're going to graph it. Okay, so step 1, cut it in half. Step 2, isolate the variable. So we need to get x by itself. Opposite or inverse operation of adding to would be subtracting. Do that to both sides. My 2's cancel. I'm left with x, and 4 minus 2 is 2, and I'm just going to bring that inequality symbol straight down. So x is greater than 2. Just brought my greater than symbol down. X is greater than 2. So alright, so let's go ahead and graph this. Let's do it with orange. Okay. So I'm going to put my circle on 2, and it's going to be an open circle or not colored in because its x is greater than 2. So I want all the numbers greater than 2. It doesn't equal 2. Alright, so x is greater than 2. So all the numbers greater than 2 would be this way on the number line. Okay, remember your arrow should point the same direction as your inequality symbol. They're both pointing that way. And that's all you do. Okay, number 2. Y minus 3 is less than or equal to 1. So we're going to cut it in half. Isolate the variable. So the opposite of subtracting 3 is adding 3. We're going to do that to both sides. My 3's cancel. I'm left with y, and 1 plus 3 is 4. And just bring down your greater than or equal to symbol. So I've got y is greater than or equal to 4. So let's go ahead and graph this. I'm going to have a circle on 4. Wow, I realized I just was saying greater than or equal to. Silly me. It's less than or equal to, so sorry, y is less than or equal to 4. Less than or equal to, good job Clickman. Okay, I hope y'all caught that. So y is less than or equal to 4 is how you say that. So I'm going to put my circle on 4, and I want everything less than or equal to 4. So since it could equal 4, I'm going to close my circle in, create a closed circle, and I want everything less than that. So less than is this way on the number line. Those are all the numbers less than 4. Okay, remember your arrow on the end of your line should point the same direction as your inequality symbol. They're both pointing to the left, okay, for less than. Number 3. Cut it in half. Isolate the variable. So the opposite of adding 8 is subtracting 8. Do that to both sides. My 8's cancel. I have m, and on this side I have 6 minus 8. Well, I'm going to need to add a line and change the sign. So now I have 6 plus negative 8. 6 plus negative 8. My signs are different. Okay, I'm going back to those integer addition rules. My signs are different, so I'm going to take the difference. The difference between 6 and 8 is 2, and I have more negatives, so that's a negative 2. So I've got m is greater than or equal to, I just brought down my symbol, negative 2. All right, let's go ahead and graph this. So I'm going to have a circle on negative 2, and I want everything greater than or equal to negative 2. So since it could equal negative 2, I'm going to close it in. And I want everything greater than that, so that's to the right on a number line. All these numbers are greater than negative 2. Remember, your arrow should match your symbol. They should both point the same direction. Okay, number 4. I'm going to cut it in half. I'm going to isolate the variable. So I want to make this minus 5 go away. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides. My 5's cancel. Okay, I have negative 3 plus 5 here. Negative 3 plus 5. Well, my signs are different, so I'm going to take the difference. The difference between 3 and 5 is 2, and I have more positives, so that's going to be a positive 2. So 2 is less than t. Now when you go to graph this, that could get a little confusing, all right? So we need to make sure that we write this where our variable is first, like we have over here, where our variable is first. So I'm going to flip this around. So I have t is greater than 2. Notice, if I flip the order of the inequality, I need to make sure I flip my symbol to match. So if I look here, the alligator is eating the t, so when I rewrite this, I need to make sure that my alligator is still eating the t. Alright, so this is my final answer, just rewritten a way that's going to help us graph it. So 2 is where my circle goes. I want everything greater than 2, so it does not include the number 2. So that's an open circle, and everything greater than that. Okay? So remember, your arrow and your inequality symbol should point the same direction. Okay, next one, number 5. My first step is going to be to cut it in half. Isolate the variable. So the inverse of adding 7 is subtracting. Do that to both sides. My 7's cancel. Alright, I've got 4 minus 7. So I'm going to add a line, change the sign. So now I have 4 plus negative 7. Well, my signs are different, so I'm going to take the difference. The difference between 4 and 7 is 3. And I have more negatives than I do positives, so it's a negative 3. So I've got negative 3 over here. I'm going to bring down my inequality symbol, and then I've got r. But there we go again, it's backwards, so I need to flip it around to write it with the variable first. So I've got r. Okay, on this inequality, my alligator's eating the negative 3. So when I flip it, I need to make sure that my alligator's still eating the negative 3. Okay, so r is less than negative 3. Let's graph that. Put a circle on negative 3. I want everything less than negative 3, so it does not include negative 3, so it's an open circle. And everything less than that is going to be to the left. Okay, remember your arrow should match your inequality. They're both pointing the same direction. Last but not least, 5 minus b is less than or equal to 10. Okay, so let's cut it in half. All right. Now I need to isolate this variable. All right, so I want to make this positive 5 go away. And I know you're going to be tempted to look at this and say, but that's minus 5. But guys, we don't read right to left, we read left to right. So that is a positive 5. If it were negative, there would be a negative sign in front of it. So in order to make positive 5 go away, I'm going to subtract 5. My 5's cancel. I'm left with minus b is less than or equal to, and 10 minus 5 is 5. Okay? So, this is a really bad example, and I don't want to do this. So I am going to scratch this, because you can't do this part, because that's in the next stop. So, really bad example. Let me rewrite this. 5 plus b is less than or equal to 10. Let's do this one. Okay, so cut it in half. Again, that's a positive 5, so the opposite of a positive 5 is a negative 5. So we'll subtract that from both sides. So I'm left with positive b, or b, is less than or equal to 5. Okay, now let's graph that one. So I'm going to put a circle on, these are the wrong numbers. Now that I change things, look at me go. Let's go with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So I'm going to put a circle on 5. I want everything less than or equal to 5. So color that in, because it could equal 5, less than or equal to. And I want everything less than that. Remember, your arrow and your inequality symbol should point the same direction. Okay, this is solving and graphing one-step inequalities using multiplication and division. So this is stop 2, pit stop B for chapter 8. So our rules for solving one-step inequalities using multiplication and division are almost identical to addition and subtraction, except there's one difference, and that deals with the inequality symbol. So our first step is to cut it in half. Step 2, isolate the variable. Step 3, in order to do that, we're going to use the inverse operations to solve. Step 4, unlike in addition and subtraction where we just brought the inequality symbol down, we are going to have to determine the inequality symbol now with multiplication and division. So we're going to ask ourselves, do you flip it or does it stay the same? Alright, so the reason we're going to ask ourselves that is if you multiply or divide by a negative number, we are going to flip the inequality sign. So that's why when we get to step 4, we have to ask ourselves, am I going to flip it or will it stay the same? Alright, so if you multiply or divide by a negative number, we're going to have to flip the inequality sign. So let's go do some examples so you'll understand what that means. So number 1, example number 1, we're going to cut it in half. We're going to isolate the variable. So let's get b by itself. The opposite of dividing by 3 would be multiplying by 3. What I do to one side, I'm going to do to the other. My 3's cancel. So I'm left with b, and then on this side I have 12. Because 4 times 3 is 12. Now, I need to ask myself, did I multiply or divide by a negative number? I multiplied by a positive 3, so no, I did not. So since I did not multiply or divide by a negative number, my inequality symbol will stay the same. So I will just bring my greater than symbol down. I don't need to flip anything because that 3 is a positive. So b is greater than 12 is my final answer. And let's go ahead and graph these. Okay, so my circle is going to go on 12. And its b is greater than 12, so it does not include the number 12, so I'm going to leave it open. Now I want everything greater than that. So my arrow is going to point to the right. Remember, your arrow and your inequality point the same direction. Okay, number 2. Negative 4 times a is less than or equal to negative 16. So we're going to cut it in half. Isolate the variable. Opposite of multiplying by negative 4 is dividing by negative 4. So I'm going to divide both sides by -4. My -4's cancel. I'm left with A. And then -16 divided by -4. Well, 16 divided by 4 is 4, and a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Now I need to figure out my symbol. Did I multiply or divide by a negative number? Yes, I did. I divided by a -4. So since I divided by a negative number, I'm going to have to flip this inequality symbol. So instead of less than or equal to, I'm going to make it greater than or equal to. So I just reversed the inequality symbol, or flipped it. So my final answer is A is greater than or equal to 4. So I'm going to go ahead and graph this. Okay, I'm going to put my circle on 4. Okay, and I want everything greater than or equal to 4. So since it could equal 4, I'm going to go ahead and close it in and color it in. And I want everything greater than or equal to that. So here's my arrow, and it matches my inequality symbol. Now guys, you can always go and check your answer and just pick any number that you graphed on your line, like 7 is graphed. If I plugged a 7 in here, -4 times 7, plug in a 7 in for A, should be less than or equal to -16. Well, -4 times 7 is -28, and that is less than or equal to -16, so I know I did that right. So again, to check your work, you're just going to pick any number that is on your graph, okay, that's on your graph, and plug it in for your variable and check. So let's look at number 3. I'm going to cut it in half, isolate the variable. So the opposite of multiplying by -10 is dividing by -10. And do that to both sides. My 10's cancel. 40 divided by -10. Well, 40 divided by 10 is 4, and a positive divided by a negative is a negative. Left with n on this side. So now I'm going to ask myself, did I multiply or divide by a negative number? Yes, I did. I divided by a -10. So since I divided by a negative number, I'm going to flip or reverse my inequality symbol. So this was less than. Now it's going to be greater than. So I have -4 is greater than n. But remember, when we're graphing this, that's backwards. It's going to be hard for us to graph it. So let's reverse. So I've got n and -4. My alligator needs to be eating the -4. So let's make sure we write it the correct way. So I'm going to graph n is greater than, n is less than -4. Okay, so my numbers down here, -2, -1, 0, 1. I'm going to put my circle on -4, and I want everything less than -4, okay, less than -4, so I don't close in my circle because it doesn't include the number -4, and everything less than that would be to the left. My arrow and my inequality symbol point the same direction, so I'm good to go. Okay, number 4. R divided by 8 is greater than -2. I'm going to cut it in half. Isolate the variable. So the inverse operation of dividing by 8 is going to be multiplying by 8. Do that to both sides. My 8's cancel. I'm left with R. And -2 times +8 is -16. Did I multiply or divide by a negative number? No, I did not. That is a +8. So since I didn't multiply or divide by a negative number, I don't need to flip any signs. So I'm just going to copy it down. So R is greater than -16. Okay, so let's go ahead and graph this. I'm going to put my circle on -16. I want R is greater than -16, so since it does not include 16, I'm going to leave it open. Okay, and I want everything greater than that, so that's to the right on the number line. Remember, your arrow and your inequality should point the same direction. Okie dokie. Number 5, cut it in half. Opposite of, and we're going to isolate the variable, so the opposite of dividing by 2 is multiplying by 2. And do that to both sides. My 2's cancel. -2 times +2 is -4. And I have s on this side. Did I multiply or divide by a negative number? No, I did not. So I don't need to flip anything. So let's copy down. Just bring the inequality symbol down. But remember, when we're graphing this, we like the variable on the left side, so let's just flip it around. So I've got s and -4. My alligator is eating the s. So let's make it eat the s again. So s is greater than or equal to -4. 3, -2, -1, and 0. You should already have these on yours. Okay, I'm going to put my circle on -4, and I want everything greater than or equal to -4. So since it could equal -4, I'm going to color it in. I want everything greater than that. Pointing the same direction, I'm good to go. Number 6, cut it in half. Opposite, excuse me, isolate the variable. So the opposite of multiplying by 8 is dividing by 8. I'm going to do that to both sides. My 8's cancel. I'm left with n. 32 divided by 8 is 4. And did I multiply or divide by a negative number? No, I did not. That is a +8, so I don't need to flip anything. So I'm just going to bring down that symbol, and that's my final answer. So let's go ahead and graph this. I'm going to have my circle on +4, and I want n is less than 4, so it does not include the number 4, so I'm going to leave it open, and I want everything less than that, and my arrow matches my symbol. They both point the same direction, so I am good to go. So this is how you solve and graph one-step inequalities using multiplication and division. The only thing that you have to remember to ask yourself is, do I need to flip the sign? And in order to flip it, that means I'm going to multiply or divide by a negative number. So don't forget to ask yourself that question.